Hey, and welcome to your Angels Cup flight shipped out on October 22nd, 2018. We have 4 coffees here, and I'm going to take a small taste of each of them and decide which I prefer, and also just have a great experience with a lot of different kinds of coffees, which is what I always love about my cupping flight from Angels Cup. So we're going to start off with 6242, and I haven't looked on the back, so I don't know anything about the coffee, but let's see what I think. Huh. So I'm getting a little bit of a middle note of some mild acidity, but I actually think there's quite a lot of sweetness in this cup, and the aftertaste is really lingering for a long time. I feel like the sweetness might be kind of like dried fruit, like some sort of like raisin or something. Let's see what we've got. So this is from Rowdy Beans Coffee. It is a Sumatra, and it's washed. So their tasting notes are cacao, tobacco, and cedar. And they say that it's flavorful, bright, but balanced. And they're feeling like there's some middle smokiness that's sort of tobacco or cedar and molasses, but it does have a heavy body. I agree with that. I do think this has kind of a heavy body. And I have to say that often I'm used to a lot of the coffees that come in the Angels Cup flight to have a sort of like early forward brightness or acidity to them. And this one did feel like a little bit like that note was kind of more in the middle, and there was a little bit more of like a kind of traditional smoky coffee flavor that most Americans have gotten really accustomed to from Starbucks. But I'm really thinking it's still really balanced. Like I'm just not getting like only burnt smoky or something. Delicious. All right, so on to our next coffee, 6243. Well, this feels very different from the last. Definitely not nearly as kind of smoky flavored. And I'm definitely getting the acidity a little bit more forward in the length of the tasting experience. The acidity, though, doesn't seem like super bright or grassy to me. It feels a little bit more on the musky side of things for me. So let's take a look at what they say. This is also from Rowdy Beans. It's Ugandan, and it's washed. And they're saying their flavor note is apple cider donut. They say that it's a very unique coffee, which I agree. And they're saying like Asian pears or grapefruit, that it feels like bright and bubbly. Yeah, I definitely feel that these two coffees are a great set for discussing body, in that this first coffee, the Sumatra by the same roaster, immediately feels like kind of heavier in the mouth, whereas this one, I think that's kind of what they mean by bubbly. It does feel like a little bit lighter in the mouth, kind of like the difference between like a sort of sparkling water and some kind of like, heavier kind of water. I don't know if you want to be drinking heavy water, but there we go. So the next one up is 6244, and let's see what we have in store here. So this one I feel like I'm getting a little bit more spice note in it. And coffee tasting is really interesting in how when we say that something has like a spice note, like a chocolate or cinnamon or nutmeg or something, we're usually not saying that like it tastes directly like that, like it might if you were to have like a heavily spiced tea or something. But instead what we mean by that is that it's kind of like if you had just eaten something like a spice muffin and the taste was lingering with you a little bit. It's like kind of like an echo of a taste or like a scent of a taste, often more than it is like a strong flavor note. And some people get real confused with coffee around that. All right, let's see what they say. This is from Brug Coffee Company. It's Colombian. And they say that it's washed. And they're saying that their flavor notes are coffee, carrot cake, or candied carrots, or vanilla. And I'm wondering if maybe that's like where I'm resonating with them a little bit in terms of the spice note, like kind of nutmeg. And they say that it has a nice aftertaste, which I agree. It's interesting, this flavor note about carrot cake and vanilla. I wonder if that's just a matter of like there being a kind of savory, roasted, kind of caramelized vegetable taste to it. So I can kind of see that actually, which is sort of an interesting flavor note for a coffee. But also they say they're surprised it's Colombian. I'm also a little surprised it's Colombian because I usually don't get a lot of spice notes from Colombian. A very interesting coffee. All right, so last but not least, we have 6245. So let's see what this has in store for us. Okay, so this is one of the first things that I learned to taste in coffee, in that the smell of this and the initial taste of this is very much like a blueberry scent. And I've associated over time these blueberry scents with like Ethiopian coffees. So we'll see if I'm right or wrong, but I feel like this is potentially an Ethiopian. It's a very clean coffee in that the flavor note comes in, it kind of develops, and then it sort of drops off into your kind of typical coffee kind of smoky flavor. So let's see what it says. Hi, I was right, it's Ethiopian. It's a natural processed Ethiopian, and this one's from Think Coffee right here in New York. Think Coffee was one of the very first coffee shops that I used to kind of like hang out in when I moved to New York and felt very New Yorker. So they're getting blueberry and toasted muffin. So I'm like straight on with this coffee flavor note. I feel like the aftertaste is a little bit roasted, and they're saying all kinds of crazy stuff like blueberries, toasted muffins, that it's roasted, but it burns off any sour yogurt flavors, which is kind of an interesting thing about Ethiopian coffees is that they do have this very strong, identifiable kind of blueberry scent or blueberry note. Many of them do anyway, and but then sometimes it's so acidic that it can start to feel a little sour, like off, like kind of like sour yogurt or whatever. And so it's kind of a balance of trying to do both of those things. So this was a great flight because it had such a big amount of variety. There's 3 roasters in it, 4 countries. I think we moved from something that felt a little smokier to something that felt a little brighter, but we had some other things going on in between. And this Colombian coffee was really out of nowhere surprising in terms of how it's Colombian, but it has this really strange kind of roasted vegetable, savory, sweet, kind of caramelized mix. So definitely a worthwhile flight. I do think my pick might be the Colombian that I might put into their app to try to get this to be like the coffee that's like the best coffee of the month according to their users, that's shipped out if you just want like one coffee a month that's like the best according to all the people who are tasting. So for me, it might be this Colombian. So that was from Brug Coffee Company. Good work, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you during the next cupping flight.